You're listening to Boomers Today with your host, Frank Sampson.
Well, welcome to Boomers Today. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, each week we bring you important and very useful information on issues facing baby boomers, their parents, and other loved ones. And as I do each and every week, I thank all of you. And I thank all of you because it's because of you our listeners are growing each and every day. So many of you are passing on individual shows or the entire podcast links to friends and family. So many of you, our statistics show, so many of you listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreakers, all sorts, basically all the different podcast stations. So we're on them all. So whatever your favorite podcast station is, we're there. So thank you so much for sharing. And I know why you share is because we have wonderful guests and very, very knowledgeable. And we're certainly not going to disappoint you today because we have with us Lisa Weintraub Schifferle. I hope I got your last name right, Lisa. Schifferle?
You did.
Oh, look at that. All right, Lisa Weintraub Schifferle, who is the Senior Policy Analyst in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's Office of Older Americans. The CFPB is a United States government agency. She leads the Managing Someone Else's Money financial caregiving program, as well as the Money Smart for Older Adults Scam Awareness Program. She also supports the office's work to combat elder financial exploitation through network collaboration and age-friendly banking. Lisa's career in consumer protection spans more than 25 years. Before coming to the CFPB, she worked at the Federal Trade Commission, where she trained consumers, business, and advocates on scams, identity theft, and cybersecurity. She also served as the FTC's identity theft coordinator and litigated fraud and data security cases. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, it's I'll tell you, we've had people on the show, as you know, I've been doing this for many years, our podcast, and we've had people come on and talk to us about scams, and people have written books on it and all that, and that's great. We've never had anybody at a high level like yourself, and from the government who's dealing with this. So love to learn more. So tell us a little bit more about CFPB, the Office for Older Americans, and kind of what you do.
Sure. The CFPB, like you said, is a federal government agency, and we focus on consumer financial protection. Basically, the agency was designed to make sure that banks and lenders treat everyone fairly. And then in the Office for Older Americans, where I work, we work to protect consumers ages 62 and over from financial harm, and also help people navigate key financial decisions as we grow older. And as part of this, addressing scams and fraud is a big part of our mission in the Office for Older Americans at CFPB. So I'm really glad to be here to talk about that issue. We all know somebody who this issue has touched. It can affect anyone, regardless of age, race, gender, or socioeconomic status. You probably have a neighbor who maybe experienced a scam, or a friend who maybe got involved in a romance scam, or family member who got a call or pop-up. So it's really an issue that can affect any of us. So I'm really appreciate the opportunity to speak about it today.
Yeah, unfortunately, we hear about this. As you know, I'm in the senior care industry, and we do hear about this almost every day. It's a horrible thing. So, I'm going to bring up a term that maybe we weren't exactly going to talk about, but we deal a lot with elder abuse. All right, within our industry, and people taking advantage of the elderly. And when you hear abuse, when somebody hears the word abuse, I think what crosses their mind is physical abuse, but there's financial abuse. and certainly financial exploitation with the elderly. And so that's really what I wanted you to discuss with us is, why is elder financial exploitation such an important topic to discuss?
Yes, that's a really good point, because elder abuse and physical abuse often goes hand in hand with elder financial exploitation. So it's really important when you have a case of physical abuse to look to see if there's also financial abuse and vice versa. And this issue of elder financial exploitation, which is the focus of the CFPB, since we are a financial protection agency, it's really one of the biggest threats to older adults' retirement and income security. And, we know that fraud is affecting Americans of all ages, and it's growing each year. It actually, the most conservative estimates of frequency is at least 4 million financial exploitation cases per year for people ages 60 and older. One study by a company called TrueLink found that 37% of older adults were victims of elder financial exploitation in a 5-year period. And then the estimates of financial losses vary from 2.9 billion to 36 billion. So it's really a huge problem, and it's growing. It skyrocketed during the pandemic, and it continues to grow. If you look at Federal Trade Commission data from 2023, they got 5.4 million reports in 2023, which is up from 5.2 in 2022. And of these reports, half of them involved fraud. So we can see that really the problem continues to increase even after the pandemic.
Yeah. So, I'm always curious about this because when we're confronted with it, it's usually another family member that is committing the financial or even physical, abuse. And of course, we do what we need to do. We report it right away when we see something like that, or even in thinking something like that is going on. Is there any statistics that you even have? I'm not sure. It wasn't a question I was planning to ask you, but it just came to mind. Are most of these scams committed by outsiders, or are we talking about, taking advantage of seniors financially from own family members?
That's a really good point. I mean, I was focusing on scam data, but there is elder financial exploitation by caregivers, by family members, by people known to the individual. So we think of it as sort of two universes of elder financial exploitation. One universe dealing with people known to the individual. That could be someone who's acting as their agent under power of attorney, or maybe just helping them with physical caregiving and then takes advantage of them financially. And then the second category are these scammers, like the tech support scams. These are strangers usually, or they start out as strangers and then may try to build a relationship. So the tech support scams, romance scams, investment scams, and the rest. So both of them are problems that we're keeping an eye on. The data does vary as to which is more prevalent. Some studies say the ones known to the individual are more prevalent than the scams, but the scams are a huge and growing problem as well.
Well, thanks for clarifying that. So, so maybe you could give us some trends. Things are changing all the time with this, but maybe some of the top scam trends today. Can you give us a feel for that?
Sure. Well, first, there's an increase in money loss due to scams. So not only are the absolute number of reports of scams increasing, but the dollar loss is increasing. So again, looking at the FTC's 2023 data, people reported losing $10 billion in 2023, up from $8 billion in 2022. And that's just what's reported through Sentinel. So we know the problem is much bigger than that. Other big trends is that investment scams are at an all-time high. So consumers reported losing more money to investment scams than any other category in 2023. Romance scams are another one that has very high dollar losses. and the reported losses to romance scams totaled $1.14 billion, with median losses per person of 2,000. So it's the highest reported loss for any form of imposter scam. Usually people who are involved in a romance scam are losing a lot of money. Two other trends I just wanted to highlight are the increase in cryptocurrency and then concern about the role of artificial intelligence or AI. So cryptocurrency, we're hearing more and more that scammers are asking for payment in cryptocurrency, or that investment scammers and romance scammers are luring people in saying, I'll teach you how to invest in cryptocurrency, but then they're really directing the funds to themselves. And then, of course, with AI, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask you about AI, and you were going to just get to it. But, AI has been, kind of just almost introduced to the public, at least, maybe just even in the past year or so. And certainly could be a lot of benefits to AI. But, of course, when there's something new that comes out, then people think about how they could use it in a negative way. So talk to us about that. How is AI affected people, and is it one of the more prevalent scams today?
Well, like you said, AI can have a lot of benefits, including benefits in helping to better track and recognize scams and frauds, so that financial institutions and others can use artificial intelligence to create better algorithms to catch fraud and try to stop it. But at the same time, scammers can take advantage of AI. And one area of big concern is voice cloning, because right now it's very easy to get voice cloning software and clone the voice of family members, so that then family emergency scams become even more believable, because someone can just get your voice off the internet and then clone it and then say, hi, Grandma, I'm calling from another country and I'm stuck, I got in a car accident, or I'm in jail, or I'm in the hospital. I need you to send money right away. And those scams have been going on for a long time, but with voice cloning, they can become even more believable and effective. So that is something that we are keeping a close eye on, is the role of AI in fraud and scams.
So I know this can be a tough question, but I'm sure you could handle it here. So how can people recognize these types of scams and avoid them?
Well, the best way to recognize scams generally is just to know about them and to know that they're out there. So if you do get a call like that from someone claiming to be a grandchild, for instance, you think twice and think, wait a minute, I heard about this scam. I'm not going to just rush to send money. But I mean, the thing of it is, you may not be able to tell that it's voice cloning as opposed to the actual grandchild. That's why it's important to take other steps. Like if you get such a call, then to call or text the grandchild or their parents to check whether this is legit or not. The scammer will try to rush you into just sending payment. And of course, it's very worrisome if you hear about a loved one who's in need, but it is important to call or text the parent or grandchild in this type of situation and see if the call you're getting is legit or not. You may find out the kid is just fine in a math class and does not need money sent to some other country. So those are really the best protections.
Yeah, and I've heard people that, like you said, questioned it, and they say, well, hold on just a second. And they go to make another call to check to see if the grandchild, and when they go back, the person's gone. As soon as they kind of anticipate, because they want to rush you into it. They don't want any hesitation. Is that correct?
That's right. I mean, that's one of the big tools of scammers, is to rush you, to create a false sense of urgency, to get you to thinking there's an emergency. So you have to act fast before you can think about things. So yeah, waiting, taking a deep breath, calling, checking is very important. Another thing sometimes people recommend for family emergency type scams is to just have a family password, so that if something were to happen, you'd have to state the password. And then if you got a call like that, you could say, oh, what's the password? And they would have to know.
That's a great
idea.
idea. I like that. That's a great idea. Yeah. So I know you touched upon some of the prevalent scams. Any others that you'd like to address to help educate our listeners?
Well, just to talk a little bit more about the investment and romance scams, because those are ones that are very prevalent right now. And it is important, like I said, to recognize the red flags. So with the investment scams, if someone's pressuring you to act quickly and saying that it's guaranteed or no risk and leave it all to them, those are big red flags. Also, if they won't explain their payment structure or ask you to put all your money in one investment, it's like the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Those are some red flags. And then something that a lot of people may not know about is that you can check the background of a brokerage firm or investment advisor at brokercheck.finra.org or at investor.gov. So those are two places you can check out investment advisors before you use them. So those are good tips for investment scams and how to avoid them, and also to be very wary if someone's asking you to pay in cryptocurrency, because like I said before, that is one of the current tools of scammers, because they know that once you send by cryptocurrency, it's really hard to get your money back.
Yeah.
And then the romance scam is another one
right.
that is important to know about. So a lot of people have probably heard about this, where they start to develop what seems to be like a relationship. Then they ask you for money. It may start with small amounts, and then it builds up to larger amounts, usually for some sort of medical emergency or for travel to see you. And then they take the money and disappear. And what people should know, because this happens to a lot of people across all ages, is often these are done by international crime rings. These are sophisticated criminals who set up fake profiles and then target multiple people with the same profile. So people shouldn't be ashamed or embarrassed if they think maybe that they are involved with a romance scammer, because these are sophisticated crimes. So some tips to look out for is, if someone's asking for money or gifts and you haven't met them in person, don't send money or gifts to someone you haven't met in person is a big tip we give people. And then don't share personal information with the new personal financial information like bank accounts, credit card numbers, or social security numbers with a new love interest. Also really good to talk to someone you know about this new love interest, because it is oftentimes that other people recognize the red flags that may be hard to see when you're in this situation. And then the last tip I want to give is just that there's something called a reverse image search, where you can take a picture if they share a picture of themselves and you're thinking, I wonder if this is real or scam. You can take that photo and see what names it's associated with and see where it pops up. And so if it's associated with another name or with details that don't match up with what they're telling you, then it may be a scam. Although I do want to point, since we talked about AI, this is another area where AI could come to play, because they could create an AI image now. So that may not come up in a Google search.
Right. That's it's crazy. It really is. So in the romance scam, if somebody is just suspicious, what do you recommend they do? Just try to stop and don't even communicate with them anymore?
That is the best advice, to try to cut off the relationship, stop communicating with them. Certainly don't send any money, block them if necessary. Talking to somebody else, can often give you a reality check, because these scams do pull on people's heartstrings. So it can be hard to see when you're in the situation that it is a romance scam, but someone else may hear it, or you may be that someone else who hears it for somebody who who's involved in it, and say, wait, that sounds like what she was talking about on the podcast. This may be a romance scam. So it is good to talk to other people. We know that social isolation can be, one of the risk factors for all types of scams. So
Right.
It's good to talk to people.
So Lisa, we're going to take a real quick break, I promise, just to recognize our sponsor. And we come back, we'll, let you share with our listeners how they can learn more about the organization you're involved with within the federal government, and just what people can do if what the next steps would be if they did get scammed. We'll talk more about that when we come back. So, do you know anyone who may be concerned about an older driver? Well, Senior Care Authority's Beyond Driving with Dignity program is a facilitated self-assessment program for older drivers. This program has been designed to serve as a vital tool to facilitate older drivers and their families as they make appropriate decisions regarding the future of one's safe driving career. If the individual is a safe driver, an advisor will provide him or her with strategies on how to remain a safe driver as they progress through the aging process. If driving retirement is the appropriate decision, then the individual and their family are offered possible alternatives, resources, and a specific plan to ensure a smooth and successful transition from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. So to learn more, go to www.beyonddrivingwithdignity.com. That's www.beyonddrivingwithdignity.com, or call 877-907-8841 to connect with a Senior Care Authority advisor in your area. So we are back with Lisa Weintraub Schifferle, who's a Senior Policy Analyst at CFPB. And we're learning a whole lot more about scams and what to do and all that. But maybe before we get into any more questioning, Lisa, maybe you could just share with our listeners the CFPB website or any other suggestions you have for them and where they could learn more.
Sure. You can learn more about all of our resources at consumerfinance.gov/older-Americans. And in particular, I want to draw people's attention to something called Money Smart for older adults. This is a resource, Train the Trainer scam prevention resource from the CFPB and FDIC. And we recently updated it to include romance scams, which we were just talking about. And they have guides for individuals. They also have instructor guides. So if you go out in the community and give your own presentations, they'll give you a scripted PowerPoint on how to talk about different scams and fraud. We also have posters, bookmarks, and other things that you can order to display in your community to help other people spot and stop scams. So those are great resources. And if you do need to report a fraud or scam, the place to report scams is to reportfraud.ftc.gov. And I do want to point out that your report can help law enforcement shut down scammers and stop other people from being scammed. So please don't be ashamed or embarrassed to report it. It is a crime for somebody to commit a scam. So don't be ashamed or embarrassed to report the crime.
Great. On that, what you just said, so, how often are these fraudsters brought to justice? Does it happen often? How successful are we in finding them and bringing them to justice?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are some really great examples of these fraudsters being brought to justice, including one example is the CFPB's Brightspeed case. And this was a case where the CFPB was able to distribute over $53 million to affected consumers. And what happened in Brightspeed is they were a payment processor that let scammers cheat consumers, including older adults. And they basically knowingly processed payments for companies that said they were offering tech support services, but instead were tricking consumers into purchasing expensive, unnecessary antivirus software or services. So Brightspeed was allowing their payment platform to be used and facilitated by tech support scammers. So the CFPB's case helped stop them from doing that and get money back for consumers. So that's a great example. There also was an example where the IRS imposter scam calls. These are calls where criminals claim to be from the IRS and say you owe back taxes. And they call you and scare you into trying to send them money. Well, there was a major interagency enforcement action which shut down overseas scam call centers, leading to a huge reduction in these imposter scam calls about the IRS. And then the last example I just want to mention is the Western Union case, which again was an intergovernmental effort, which gave money back to consumers who had used Western Union to transfer money to scammers, again on the theory that Western Union knew that scammers were using their platform and should have stopped them. So those are some great examples, and we're really trying to increase the amount of times that fraudsters are brought to justice. That is why it's so important for people to report the scams, because you may not realize that you're reporting the same scam as 500 other people in the country. And so it's really helpful for us to have those reports in order to bring these enforcement actions and shut down scammers and prevent additional scams.
That's what I'm hearing. There are some definite success stories in recovering money that are lost to scams. So you got some pretty good success stories. Not that I want to have our listeners think that oh, they're going to get their money back, but it does happen, right?
It does happen, and it's important for us to highlight those so that people, don't give up hope. But at the same time, we did recently do a study on what are the factors that affect whether people recover from elder financial exploitation. So that's the CFPB released an Elder Financial Exploitation Recovery Framework report. And in that, we looked at all the different aspects that affect whether you can recover. So first you have to identify that the fraud occurred, then you have to report it, then you have to investigate it, and then you got to get some sort of order to return the funds. So you can see why it is very difficult, because at any of those stages along the way, you could get caught up. You might identify it, but then the person doesn't report it, or they might report it, but then the prosecutor doesn't investigate it because it's not enough money, or it might get investigated, but then the monies get returned, in small fractions because the perpetrator doesn't have any money left to repay. So it can be a difficult process, but there are successes in getting money back for people. So it's important to know both sides of that.
Yeah. Obviously it's a federal government, the CFPB, and I mean, people that really believe in this. I mean, can money be given to this CFPB from people go, I want to give money to help even improve this, or it really is just a matter of dollars being budgeted by the federal government for the organization?
Right, we're a federal government agency, so no, we don't take contributions, although we appreciate when people appreciate the work that we do. Great.
Okay, good. Just thought I'd ask. Never know. Okay. So you talked about reporting, but just general. What would you say people really need to know so they do not lose money to scams and fraud? I mean, I know you covered a lot of that, but maybe just give us a general overview.
Sure. There's certain tips that can apply to all sorts of different frauds and scams. And, one is to take your time. Like we talked about earlier, that scammers often try to rush you by saying something's urgent, and that's a red flag. So it's important to slow down when, you're feeling like someone's pressuring you to do something quickly. Another thing is to be aware of incoming phone calls, and don't give any personal information to anyone who calls you, because they can spoof caller ID. It can look like it's coming from your bank. It can look like it's coming from Social Security. It can look like it's coming from your grandchild. But someone in another country can spoof those numbers and make it look like it's coming from somewhere that it's not. So you can't trust caller ID anymore, unfortunately. So if somebody's calling you, you really don't know who they are, so should not give any financial information out. If you think you need to give financial information out, you should call back at a number to be correct, not the number they get you, because that can just turn you back right around to the fraudster. So that's another big tip. Another is to just think about how you're asked to pay. Like we talked about before, a lot of scammers are asking for cryptocurrency. Before, it was always wire transfer or gift cards. all of these ways are ways that scammers know if you send money, it's really, really hard for you to get it back. So if someone's asking you to pay in any of those ways, those can be red flags for scams.
Right.
And then lastly, just I want to note that talking about scams is really important, because you might know about scams if you've listened to this podcast or know about it from other things, but you probably know someone who doesn't. So, taking your knowledge that you got from this and from other places and passing it on is really important to help stop scams.
Yeah, I hope they take this podcast. It's really easy just to take it and forward it on to others to listen to. So you've been a wealth of information. So unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time. So I'm just going to ask you, any just final thoughts, suggestions, words of wisdom that you have before we sign off.
Just to remember the CFPB resources at consumerfinance.gov/older-Americans, and to report scams and fraud if you do experience it or if somebody else does. Again, you can report it, reportfraud.ftc.gov. And if it's a financial product or service, you can report it to the CFPB at consumerfinance.gov/complaint. And most of all, just to talk about scams, normalize it. As I said from the start, it can and does happen to anyone, regardless of age, sex, gender, sexual orientation, education level, socioeconomic status. It can happen to anyone. So don't be ashamed or embarrassed if it happens to you. And if you know someone is happening to, just talk to friends and family and neighbors about what you've learned, because as some people say, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. So we hope you'll share what you learned to help protect other people from scams and fraud. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Lisa Weintraub Schifferle with CFPB. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. Please be safe. We'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Boomers Today with Frank Sampson. To learn more about today's show, visit boomerstodayradio.com and join us next time for another edition of Boomers Today.